Hello everybody, it's Miss Smith here. I am dance and drama teacher here at Tuxford Academy and also Oak Progress Leader. The main thing that I wanted to talk to you guys today about are something that we call active revision strategies. So if you find yourself as a kinesthetic learner, you like working practically, then these strategies might be really useful for you. I have attached a resource that will hopefully be useful. So you remember after this, there are 10 different strategies on here. As my subject is drama and dance, it's a lot movement based, and a lot of my learners really benefit from working practically and adding actions or songs or rhythms to their knowledge in order for it to stay in their minds and them to memorize it more successfully. So there are strategies on here such as creating a song or creating a story or a rhythm that goes next to key information in any subject that will help you remember specific facts, dates, times, or just knowledge in general. Another useful strategy is adding gestures to specific information. So for example, if you're learning the themes of a story in English and you want to have a specific gesture for each theme. I know in drama we study Blood Brothers and we often talk about class divide. So another useful thing on this list are using revision post-its, but not just writing your information on a sticky post-it note, but also where you then put those post-its. So for example, if I am in a maths exam and I'm thinking about a certain equation, it might be that last night when I went to butter my toast, my post-it note was stuck on that fridge, and therefore I'm recalling not only the information but the area in which I have found that information. There's a few more on here that might be useful to look through, such as 1 minute to talk consistently about the topic that you are learning about, whether that is recording yourself on your phone or talking to somebody at home, or even just to yourself. It might feel a bit weird, but it's proven to be very, very useful. Also, drawing pictures and diagrams. I'm sure a lot of people will talk to you about those kind of techniques. And again, that links to not only kinesthetic learners, but also visual learners too. One of the key things and pieces of advice is actually to revise in different places. Quite often, it is useful to have a specific area where we can focus, but sometimes if you are in the car on the way to somewhere and you've got half an hour window, rather than Snapchatting or being on your phone, it might be useful to do a little bit of revision, and actually moving in a car or being somewhere else can separate your mind and thought processes and help in that way. Someone once told me to maybe try revising under a table. Bit strange, up to you if you want to try that. Again, I've spoken a little bit about recording yourself, listening to that back. When you're on the bus and you've got your headphones in, no one's going to know if you're listening to a little bit of revision that you've done, and you're just using your time really, really wisely. And the last piece of advice is just to talk about it. I personally found it so useful to meet up with a friend, whether you're Zooming a friend or you just on FaceTime, and just talking over a revision page or testing each other. That for me was one of the most successful strategies that I personally used when I was in year 10 and 11. So really think about how you can keep your revision fresh, active and interesting. And this sheet, active learning strategies, is the one you're looking for with all those top tips on. Good luck!
Ashton, and I'm here to talk to you about a revision strategy that will help you to retain and recall information. The revision strategy is called dual coding. Now, many of you will have experienced this in your lessons. You'll have done this technique across your subjects, as it's a really effective way of learning lots of information, lots of factual information. And in your packs that you have received, you will have a revision process strategy that looks similar to this, that you can use to go through to remind yourself of the steps that dual coding should take. The first step is all about having learnt the information in your lesson. So you'll have to go back to your books or your revision guides to get that information. The second step is to decide a way in which you're going to present that information. So this could be in a knowledge organiser, or it could be in a mind map. So for example, on the back of your resource, you have a number of ways and strategies of presenting the information visually. Now the key to dual coding is using visuals as well as words, and in fact it's about minimising the amount of words that you put on a page. It's more about connecting the words with the visual icons or little pictures that you draw. It doesn't even have to be that neat. It can be just lots of sketches. In fact, it's often works best the quicker you draw and make connections between the information. After you've created your mind map or visual diagram, the next part of the process is to talk it through with somebody else. Now this is highly effective because actually you only retain about 50% of the information that you see, read or hear. And that would be, for example, from your lessons. Now 50% might not be good enough for you to recall that information in an exam situation. However, if you sit with a friend or a member of your family and you go through what you've been creating and learning, you're more likely to remember about 70% of what you then discuss with that person. That person can then ask you questions and quiz you a little bit, for more information, and that is going to delve deeper and help you recall more information about the topic that you're studying. The next element is to make sure that whilst you're doing this, you're also tracing with your finger on the page. This process is really useful because it's actually in the mind creating connections between the information. So you're actually able to think in your mind, this particular part of the diagram then links to the next part and then links to the next part. So when you're in the exam and you're trying to recall it, you can memorize it from what you've seen, from what you've talked about and heard, and from moving your finger on the page. So you're more likely to remember and visualize the sequence of events. And lastly, the last part of this process, it's really important that you have a go at seeing how much you have actually taken in through this whole process, because you may have to go through it 2 or 3 times for it to really stick in your mind. So the best way of doing this is get yourself a blank piece of paper and try and recall the whole diagram from memory. Now, ideally, you should only give yourself 5 or 10 minutes to do this so that it doesn't take you too long. And so you quickly sketch out as much of what you can remember as possible. And then this is a really good way of you seeing just how much you have remembered from the diagram that you originally created. Now, this has proven to be such a highly effective technique. It's used in businesses across the country as well, and at universities in terms of recalling large amounts of content. And research papers are saying that going through this particular process, through drawing, explaining, tracing, and then having a go at seeing how much you have remembered, is more likely for you to remember about 80 to 90% of the information that you need. Now that is highly effective for your exams. So this is one to try. I would highly recommend it as part of your revision process.
Hi Eleven, my name's Mr Richards. I'm one of the science teachers here at Tuxford Academy. Taught here for about 10 years, and I'm going to present just a few ideas for you folks on how to use iPads. So these sort of electronic devices, how you can use them in a positive way to aid your revision. So your teachers and maybe mum and dad will encourage you maybe to sort of put these sort of devices away. I'm going to show you how you can use them in a positive fashion to aid your revision and use them as an educational tool and revision tool. There's Quizlet. Quizlet's a brilliant website and app on your iPad for creating flashcards, You can create multiple choice quizzes for you to revise from. Really brilliant Quizlets. That's included in the pack that I'm going to give you all. Gojimo is a brilliant app for your mobile phone. That one's a data bank of, I think, around 65,000 questions. It's great for revising on the bus. It just gives you instant feedback on most of the exam specifications and your subjects. Get Revising is a brilliant website for creating revision timetables. There's all sorts of quizzes and crosswords on there as well that I think you'll find really useful. And if you like to revise using a mind map, there's an app called iMindmap where you're able to create a digital version of your mind map. And you can edit that throughout your studies. So quite often when you make a physical mind map with a piece of paper, that's it, it's kind of done. Whereas you can adapt your iMind map over time, save it and share it with other people. Also in your revision pack 11, there's a whole list of different websites that I would recommend you have a look at. So one of the ways in which we learn now is of course using a tablet, a mobile phone. The textbook's sort of now redundant really. It's not really how I learn anymore. If I want to learn if I want to find something, learn something, I'm going to use a tablet or a mobile phone really to learn. So you do use your iPad, your mobile phone positively, and incorporate that with all the various strategies that we're giving you as part of your revision package. Okay, so good luck year 11 with all your exams, and don't forget, I'm here to help you if you need any help. Okay, thanks very much.
Hello, I'm Mrs Yates and I'm a member of the English faculty here at Tuxford Academy. You probably recognise me, hopefully anyway. And I'm going to talk to you about mind mapping as a revision tool. Mind maps are fantastic. They're a real visual reminder of the subjects that you've been studying and some of the content that you've gone through in certain modules. And you're able to develop your metacognition skills as a result, which is essentially you understanding how you learn and how your thought process works. Think of a mind map like a little journey where you've got your central idea in the middle of your paper, and off of that you're doing your sort of associations of ideas and thinking about perhaps themes or keywords, terms that you know that you need to remember, and that once you're in the exam are part of what you'll need to kind of think about in order to answer a question successfully. If, for example, because I come from English, thinking about your subject of Macbeth and going through the themes of that, I'd start off with my idea about Macbeth in the middle, and coming off of that, ideas perhaps about the context, and 1606 being the time period, and then thinking about certain things that were going on around that time that are important to our understanding of the play. And then off of that, ideas about perhaps characters, thinking about themes, central motifs and symbols, so that you're able to consolidate your ideas, synthesize your understanding, and note down key words, key things that you know that you're going to need to remember. I certainly found them very useful. The more colours and things that you can use to put down onto paper, the more bright and vibrant it will be. And your idea really is go and redecorate your bedroom at home so that you've constantly got that visual reminder of all the revision that you need to be going through. Remember all that information, and if you're going through your mind map, it'll really help you to remember what it was that you needed to go through for your exams.
Mr Smith, science teacher and Willow progress leader, and I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about space learning and how you can use it in your own revision. So the science of it is that the brain creates memories by repeatedly stimulating neurons, and we can use this process to help us to remember things. So the reason we remember something is when an event is important enough or it's repeated enough, and synapses will fire to make that neuron repeated and be able to be there for stronger and a longer period of time. So we can turn the relevant genes on if we think something is important or it's repeated enough. So traditional space learning is what we might do in some of our science lessons, where we give you a rapid burst of information. You then have a break where you do something else. The second burst of information, and you give me a little bit of feedback, shout some answers out. We have another break, and then we do it again. What's important about the break is that the break has got to be something else that activates another part of our brain. So it can be something like colouring or some sort of creative activity. So the way that they make these long-term memories is in our brain we've got neurons, and in the gaps between those we've got synapses, and this network of cells enables us to think and remember things. What we can do is we can trick the brain into strengthening a part of these synapses to form a memory, and this is achieved by rapid and repeated stimulation. So what we can do is, what happens is this enzyme called CREB is produced when we want to remember something, and we have to allow that enzyme to strengthen, but we also have to allow it to come back because we can use a lot of it up, so we have to give it a little bit of a break. So what they found was, when they were doing this research, was that this CREB enzyme is only produced when it's rapidly stimulated and it runs out, and we have to reactivate it, and sometimes that can take up to 30 minutes. So what they found was that if we continue, when they were looking at this further, they found that actually it was better, and this process was repeated more, and there was more CREB enzymes when there was lots of stimulation with 10-minute breaks. So you guys can manipulate this at home yourselves. We will do it in revision sessions, but you can manipulate this research yourself, because we need to make activities rapid and repeated. So if we're doing revision, it should be really rapid and it should be really repeated. Also, you need to allow breaks to allow the synapses to strengthen, allow for that CREB enzyme to come back, and we allow lots and lots of breaks to allow that reactivation of that enzyme over time. So revision cards are great, especially the ones that you would make in science. You can flip them over to test yourselves. Tested reading, where you read a paragraph and you see how much you can remember, but taking breaks between it. Lots and lots of breaks. Don't do the same subject over and over again. Flick between different subjects. Make sure that you repeat things daily, because you need to have that repeated stimulation. You can do these notes where you write down notes really, really quick, and then see how much you can remember and repeat those notes until you can remember a passage of text. Make sure that you keep time limits. So 15 minutes is good, about 15-minute amount of time to learn, then a 10-minute break. And then retrieving notes, so trying to remember a piece of information, retrieval is really important. So the main points are: space learning in the revision sessions makes use of rapid and repeated stimulations of neurons to bring about lasting memory. The brain learns by strengthening those neurons, and it needs time to reset. Therefore, learning should be repeated, sustained, and you need to give it time to refresh.
Hi everyone, so I am Miss Cluley and I am a teacher of social sciences. What we're going to be going through today is how can you learn a vast amount of information that you will be given by every single subject, and how can you break this down so it is easier to manage, you can learn it in a more efficient way, and it can stay in your memory for longer. So if we look at the science behind this, we know that in your short-term memory, scientifically they have found that you can hold up to about 5 pieces of information at a time for that to be able to successfully go into your long-term memory. So for you to read through a revision guide and just read and highlight, that's actually not very effective, because once you've kind of surpassed that 5 or 6 pieces of information, your brain is going to lose its ability to hold more than that information in your brain. So what we have designed as a faculty, which we use a lot with our students, which you could use for all sorts of subjects, not just social sciences or sociology, is something called a Tuolkit. Now, when you go on to or get your goodie bag, you will be able to see that you've got a sheet that looks a little bit like this. And this will have in here an example of how to use a Tuolkit. Now, a Tuolkit takes information and breaks it down into 5 pieces. So if, for example, you are learning a study, so if we apply this to social sciences, or if you're looking at English and you're looking at a character, you can use, rather than you writing a whole paragraph about that study or that character, if you use one of the Tuolkits, which you'll be given a blank template for, they look like a triangle and it's got 5 sections of information that you can put in. So you should read through your study and you should take the 5 most important things that you need to know to be able to memorise that. So it looks almost like a flashcard, but it's a little bit more effective because we're working with the science here about how you can learn information more efficiently. Now, if you were to use this Tuolkit and create these Tuolkits, you can get your friends to test you on these, and you should be able to recall those 5 pieces of information a lot more easily than you should be able to recall a whole flashcard with lots of information and just it looks just like words. So it's really getting you thinking about, what do I need to know from this piece of information? What are the 5 pieces of information that I need to know that are most important? So if you look at the sheet that I've given you here, you will see that there's a whole study here that's in a lot of detail, and I've broken this down into 5 key pieces of information that you need to know. So at the bottom of the triangle, you just write down the character, the study, it could be the key event, and then you put the 5 pieces of information that you need to know there. And you will learn that in a lot more detail, you will learn that in a lot more efficiently than what you would a whole big flashcard or a whole piece of text or a whole revision guide. And it's just really kind of making it a lot more manageable for you to manage all the information that you'll be given from every single subject. Also on the sheet we'll have a what next, so how can you use that chunket, because it's all well and good you making the chunket, but you have to actually use it for it to be more efficient. So you could get a friend or a family member to test you using the chunket. So you could have a pack of chunkets where someone at home reads the study at the bottom or the event or the character at the bottom of the triangle, and then they have to try and prompt you to remember those 5 pieces of information. You could use a past paper, and you could get the chunkets that are relevant to that question, and without using your notes, so you're taking away all of the information, but you're using just your 3 or 4 chunkets that you need to answer that exam question. You can then have a go at answering an exam question, which gets you thinking about that information in more detail. Or you can use your textbooks and you can match your chunkets to where they go in the textbook and how you would apply it to your different topics. So there's lots of different ways that you can use a chunket. But like I said, in your goodie bag, you'll find the information sheet, and you'll also find a pack of blank chunkets. And if you need any more, just let me know and come and see me in the social science office, and I can see about getting you some more chunkets if you find them really valuable and really useful for your revision.